Hej allesammen! Välkommen till Artist Talk för den nya utställningen på Rostrums nya medlemmar 2023. Utställare och konstnärer vi har är Zardasht Faraj, Camilla Howalt och Lars Herman Hegg. Jag ska kort presentera varje konstnär och sen ska vi presentera konstverken vi har ställt ut och sen öppnar vi för frågor från publiken. Så börjar med dig Zardasht. Zardasht Faraj, född 1977 i Bagdad. Konstnär vars abstrakta maleri utforskar seendes möjligheter och en rumslig perception. Många av hans verk knyter an till idén om en så sakral geometri där särskilda former och propositioner anges förbindelse till hellighet såväl som naturen. Faraj har studerat både vid Skånska Malerskolan, Österregrevy folkhögskola och i 2012 erhållit sin master från Malmö konstakademiet. Utställningar i urval inkluderat explicit nödutgång på Kronohuset i Lund 2012 och Staden växer ett fält på Malmö konstalt, en grupputställning som var förra året. Verk av Faraj visas även nu i Ystads konstmuseums samlingsutställning. Sen har vi Camilla Howalt, född 1968, Köpenhamn. Camilla utbildad på Wimbledon College of Arts, London, från 1999 till 2002. Samt Center for Research in Modern European Philosophy på Kingston University i London. Med språket som grund undersöker Howalt förhållanden mellan ljudkonst, skulptur och performance. Så allt möjligt. Hennes verk finns representerat både i privata samlingar i England, Frankrike, Sverige och Danmark. Sen sista konstnären, Lars Herman, det är mig. Född 1994 från Norge. Utbildad vid Kingston University i 2018 till 2021 och är idag baserad i Malmö. Min praktik omfattar huvudsakligen tvådimensionella medier där hittat bildmaterial i form av screenshots och personliga fotografier vävs tillsammans för att uppge undersökningar omkring identitet, politiska problem och teknologi. Efter studierna så blev jag tilldelat Stanley Pickett Trust Fund och har tidigare ställt ut på Nordic Art Agency och Galleri A1 i Malmö. Så tänkte jag börja med dig Zardasht och du kunde förklara lite om verken som du har ställt ut på den här utställningen.
Ja, jag har då de här 4 verken som jag har gjort under de senaste 2 åren. Funkar det på engelska eller ska jag säga det på svenska? Okej? Ja. Ja. Swedish? Okay, English. Okay, so this 4 paintings that I'm showing is from the last 2 years' work. It's actually different. I've been studying different subjects and creating different series. I work in series, so from time to time I have each painting. It's a piece, a part of a serial painting. It always comes a couple or 3 or 4 more paintings like in the same theme. The first one with the bricks is I actually painted over a painting that I felt it was very disturbing me. So I wanted to paint over it, and then I used just a simple idea to mura upp det liksom. Just to cover it in with bricks. And then I felt that the painting behind was still vibrating through it, so I painted a hole in the painting, and it became then a window to some kind of a window to the universe, something like that. But it's also, my paintings is always it's mostly, I'm dealing with words in a that have some kind of, that I find some poetic quality in, like for instance, like bricks in Swedish, tegelstenar. Then I always try to translate it and learn words in Kurdish, in my own language. So then it becomes in Kurdish tegelstenar, tekalstenar kan man också säga. Så det blir då blandat. It becomes, the words meaning becomes mixed stuff or mixed stones. So I was happy about that I got a series of painting that inspired me for a while. And then this pink, jag ska vara lite snabbare. This pink painting, it's an overpainting over a painting that I bought from a second-hand boutique. So I painted over it. It was an experiment, actually. I wanted to make like heart shapes or pyramid shapes in a muddy way, that I wanted to create like a landscape where like sharp geometrical forms can experienced organically, and I gave the painting a title. It's called Hanasa. Hanasa is a Kurdish word for breathing, a breath. It's a breath because I was just playing around and messing around, and then I wanted to have an object flying over this landscape to just feel the room in it. So I painted my own inhaler that I have asthma, of course. It became a funny object for me to paint and have an absurd meaning somehow. And then a while after, I painted this Kaaba, the house of God, that exists in Saudi, in Mecca. In Mecca, I wanted to do something because when I was studying at the academy, I focused for a while on Islamic art, and I found like the patterns in Islamic art inspired me a lot, and created some kind of image structure. So lately I did this one because the shape of the Kaaba, when it's presented, is this natural shape of 6 sides. It's some kind of a holy shape because you recognize it in universe and nature everywhere, like when you break things to details. I gave it the image from Mecca is very white, and it's crowded with the Muslims pilgriming around it. It's a holy place, but I also experienced that there's some kind of hardness in this white image of the Mecca. So I wanted to retranslate it in a painting way, like so I simplified the image and just allowed it myself to paint it really simple and colorful and easy, an easy painting to do, like. This is also, I'm gonna work further on it. I want to try it on bigger scale. I want to try it with different kind of coloring. So I will use the same geometrical shape and perhaps do a series of these paintings. Yeah.
Could I just ask you, because it's quite a loaded shape, I mean, it has a lot of meaning in religion, and I'm a bit curious what it means to you personally and why you chose to use it and choose to, you know, maybe work on with it.
Sure. It's the Kaaba is it's a holy place for Muslims, and I grew up in a Muslim family, but actually not very Muslim. My father was an atheist, but he was also referring to the origin of our personal religion before Islam is Zoroastrianism, which my father gave me the name of the prophet Zardasht, which is a Persian religion, but we the Kurds also practice it, and this was a couple of thousands years before Islam. But the fact is that I was born of my mother is Muslim, so I born in an Islamic country, and I wanted somehow to try to track my spirit's heritage. Like I wanted to see a picture where it refers somehow to the history of my spiritual existence. So that's why I started dealing with the Kaaba.
May I ask?
Yeah.
Because I find it interesting that you start on the right, and in the Arabic language you write from the right to the left. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. And so is there a relation between the cube of the Kaaba, which is like quite a concrete cube object, and then the not quite square but multiform black hole there, as almost as if you're experiencing the Kaaba from the inside?
Yeah. Yes, something I realized while dealing with geometrical paintings, that I always manage to have a double perspective of the forms, so you can read it somehow like concave, like you can read it from outside and in and inside and out. It's been a play for me in my painting. So I don't know, maybe it's something wrong with my seeing, like that makes it like double and some a double image in the same one. Yeah. And it's also the Kaaba. It's also still, it was mostly, it triggered me by the word Kaaba. It's also a very closed word to Kaaba, and Kaaba is depression. We talked about it, and I just want to make some connection between different things, like what does have Kaaba with Islam, or what have Islam with how like is there some lines between the timeline between the words, like what is what is Islam, and what is it doing? How is it integrating in the north among like the ancient Vikings country? Like how like what is there between? Like how did people get to come together and live together, and what separates them today from each other when we are actually living in the same society without having much dialogue about what our differences and our beliefs, like yeah.
Do you mind if I ask Camilla?
Yeah.
And Camilla, your work is rather graphic and compared to the others. Would you mind presenting it and, outlining the work? Tell us what it's all about.
I don't know if I can tell you what it's all about. I think I'll leave that to to each person. But of course, I have my own starting points. And there are, in this piece is like a thought experience. It's a thought in motion, because it's different elements that I've put together to try and see if I could derive at a different point from when I was working with each element on its own. So, for example, the image in the golden frame is the oldest of the works. It's made in 2010 and was the first project where I took the needle and the thread seriously, if you like, and used it to do a body of work. It's felt that I've hand dyed in the material of cochineal, which is the color derived from a beetle, and has a very beautiful red color. And I mounted it on linen and gave it to my mom, and she framed it in this golden frame. Last year she passed away, and I got it back. And when I had the work in my studio, looking at the sort of how should I combine these different elements, it was there, and it was standing on the floor. And after she had it framed, she left it on the floor with lots of other paintings. So they were never hung. So I thought this should be part of it. And it was also standing on the floor to begin with. Anyway, the other works derives mostly or partly or mainly from a kind of diary or journaling aspect of my praxis, which is both verbal and photographic. And the importance of this comes from a discrepancy of my experience of being inside a body and in relation to the outside. Growing up with parents who were architects, architecture became very much an experience of the holder of the body, because I had a difficulty in experiencing my outer outline, if that's the right word. And so I tried to sort of write myself to a space where I could figure out where I was. And this sort of developed into, well, let's say there was a before and after. I had a huge emotional experience at a certain point, and it sort of turned my life upside down. And after that, it was as if all words became different in their meaning. And I started to need to code these words, because just reading them in its concrete format wasn't enough. And I started to work with perspectives in terms of, in our culture, we use the eyes a lot to understand everything, and we think we understand it immediately we have seen it. But I wanted to try and see the world from, let's say you don't have the vision or you don't have the hearing. So I started to move around with languages in a different way, in sound, and through these, which are love letters transcribed in the language of the blind, which is called the Braille. And this developed into trying as well to use it with the thread through the French knot. Together, you could say there are different experiments in working with the skin of the body, which is the outline of us, and trying to figure out, the inner and outer, but also the effect of this work with the paper, which becomes very soft and almost like an aging skin. And that has led me to this last image or sculpture, which I think of it with sound, but I haven't made a sound for this one. And it is from the last year's sketchbook it's journaling book, notebook. And it takes its point of having done a letter or written a letter, and this is thrown out. So you pick it up from the garbage and you realize that maybe something is contained here that is valuable in some sense, even if it didn't appear as such in the first place. And I took all these individual pages and they were crumbled up, and I sort of stretched them a little, and I loved the shape of these papers. They became like sculptural in themselves. And I took the red thread as from the French knots and other pieces of work like the felt grid. And I tried to make a three-dimensional sculpture where the different entries of the notebook, different drawings sort of meets at the levels that I couldn't have anticipated, and where meaning, a completely different way of seeing things could appear. I think.
Could I just ask a question? As you said, some of them are love letters or taken from a diary. I'm just curious if that's the reason why you have the theme of red. To sort of use or like signalize that, because it's hard to read without knowing the blind language. But I guess, if you have the color of red or something to symbolize the feeling that you're trying to express, is that something you had in mind when you did the work?
No, the red came from pure attraction, but it has different symbolic meanings. It does stand for love. It also stands for anger. It's in Jungian psychoanalysis, it's the ground, that which goes from the bottom of the body and into the ground, whereas the blue is the intellect and the spiritual. I'm sure there are I know there are more metaphors for the red and symbols of the red, which I can't remember right now. But for me, it is a color of comfort, and it's almost as if, it did begin. It does have a different aspect, and this is where we return to this three-dimensional object, and has to do with the body, because I've lived in a body with a lot of symptoms through its life, very painful ones, and I've had thousands of blood tests taken in my life. And so I think the red color came originally from this experience of having my blood drawn so many times, even when I was a child. And it has become almost like a signature for me, or a place that I go to if I can't find my way with my work. I go to this color because it makes me feel alive. And that's the other aspect of the written work, which is a kind of attempt at trying to understand these symptoms and metaphorize them with a sign. And this is thinking a little bit, when I don't know what it's called in English, but when you are bagklog, you're like clever on behalf of the past. And I've been trying, if you like, to make sense of this abstract experiences of a body that just went AWOL and did its own thing. And this is the future of my research as well, is to try and establish a connection between creativity and bodily symptoms they may be diagnosed in an illness or something, but they are also something of itself. They represent a kind of blocked energy or something that the body has not been able to speak of in a different way. And so I'm interested in this connection between the flow of the creative energy, which for me is also love, and the blockage of this energy, which is both bodily symptoms or blocks in love, for example, if it's not working out, or
You're not going to ask me a question.
You want me?
Just kidding. And
Shall I ask you?
no, I'm just
I can represent you.
the work I've exhibited is the recent work from the last couple of 3 months, where I've been investigating the male gaze and how male gaze has evolved, and in the context of art history and in a contemporary context as well. Because within art history, there's a theory that the male gaze always depicts women based on how men fear them. Because most of great artists within art history have been men, of course, because always men first. And so I'm interested to see how women are being depicted today, both in the context of art, but also in the context of normal channels such as social media. So a lot of the imagery I've been using, some of it is personal photography, and a lot of it is stolen photography, which I've taken from the internet and social media and whatnot, in order to sort of create this, or trying to see if it can tell us something about how our view on women or people in general might have, can tell us something about ourselves. So I started digging up photos and doing some investigations, and I found a lot of photos from like revenge porn and stuff like that, where a lot of the identities tends to be drawn out or just plussat över, att it is covered. So the people in the images are anonymous, and people who have drawn over the faces in order to cover their identities are mostly men, might be the exes or whatnot. And what we're left with is objects. Because no longer are they people, they're just bodies, which we then judge or, how to say. So it's just been collecting these images and trying to put them in a new context to see if it can tell us more, or, further investigates how the male gaze has evolved, I guess. Yeah. And if we have any questions from the audience.
Do you only work with painting, or do you also do? So, hi, my name is Anna. I just wonder, since you talked about the internet and taking photos, I understand. Do you only? It's not diminishing to say only, but do you mostly work with paintings, or do you have other kinds of? Do you use your own photography or something to create new pictures of the male gaze?
I use. I think the finished product is always painting, because it's something about the method and spending so much time with it. But some of the images as well is personal photography, which I take myself. But I find it really interesting in, when you're finding all these images, this constant stream, and I'm sure everybody knows of this with social media, and they're like constantly being bombarded with new expressions every day. So I find it, when you have this overwhelming amount of images, it's quite different when you spend so much time with it, recreating the images or manipulating the images with traditional mediums such as painting, and then really, spending time with the subject matter. So I think that answers your question.
No, because have you found patterns in I mean shapes and such things since you're watching lots of photos? Are there anything you've found that seems new compared to art history or something?
I think it depends on the channels where you're looking up, because some of them tend to be quite raw, and some of them tend to be like confined echo chambers as well. So when you're within these echo chambers, it tends to be quite brutal, and it's sort of like what I've found is that these ideas of like sexualizing people within these enclosed groups. It tends to like just being fuel on the fire and just tends to like get out of control. And I think a lot of bad ideas and how we perceive other people kind of like grows out of that. It's maybe similar to like with incels or men group. We have like MGTOW and stuff like that. That since it's so close and now open for discussions, you have everybody just confirming one another. The worst of us tends to like grow out of it, I think. Yeah.
I suppose it's more a comment, but and it might be a little bit overstepping, but I find it interesting that the Kaaba, the black cube, has the same shape as the square, which is covering the behind of the lady in the other image. And so I was just wondering, both of you, if you've seen this, and even with the square sort of hole in the wall, which is covering for a lady as well, if you have had thoughts about this since we hung the exhibition. Would you, or Lars?
No, for me, actually the black color became recently a representation of the black hole in the universe. It's a very important element for me to have it while I'm also painting, when I don't like some painting that I can't really feel that I want to stand with it. So I send it all to the black holes. I paint over it black, and then I make different shapes. So in a way, the black color is it's covering, but at the same time opening for a much bigger space. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me as well, especially with the black color and with the drawings as well, that is kind of like it pinpoints really the narrative as well. Like your painting covering up a woman behind it, and the drawings within my paintings as well, which covers up and creates a new narrative as well. I think it's kind of similar, and I think it plays an important part, and it's something that piqued my interest when I first started seeing like these anonymous photos. Yeah.
In your images, do you use the black field as a sensor for parts of the woman's body that you feel it's like kind of at least it's for me, sometimes some images of parts of the body can be super focused and almost make a hole in your mind, like. And in my paintings, I always do that. When I'm painting, it's like I'm covering those channels of very strong light or very strong image. So is it the same process for you when you cover this parts of the photos?
I think some of them were already covered up by the ones who posted them, and I continued using that and started covering up photos I found myself in order to do the same as they did with trying to control the narrative. And I think, you know, a lot of the reactions from showing the work I think I somehow succeeded in that you are sort of presented with this maybe uncomfortable situation. So yeah, I think it's a way of like maybe controlling the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in at least two of the paintings, both figures that have been overpainted with black is a woman. And I'm just thinking that the part of the woman which are being covered are the female organs of the body, and I'm wondering, since I did introduce the sort of Jungian idea of the red at the bottom and the intellect as the blue, that there is a kind of intellectualizing the body of the woman by covering it, so that it takes us away from that which introduces a completely different problematic between the male and the woman in terms of power and, you know, submission and domination, that we spoke about as well.
I also think it depends on who manipulates the photos as well. If you are the woman, you might be, you know, uncomfortable subjecting yourself, you know, naked, while as if a man were to do it, more worried about the consequences of leaking a photo, and you know the subject matter is the naked women. While when it's a private photo being shared between two parties, you just want to make sure that this can't be used again. So I think with the large one that's covered up the private parts, it's probably a photograph taken by the female itself, while the others are taken by men, which, yeah, I don't know. Then again, you know, talking about controlling the narrative. So I think it says a lot about which perspective it's from. Any other questions?
Thank you for so nice presentations about your work. I was just thinking about the boring question, like the political on the background, on your artworks and thoughts. Like, you cannot see, like, I don't know if I'm very wrong, like critical perspective on your work, maybe the structures, the male gaze, big size, and in another way, your words are that it's not so political, but I see that religion is there present in a way or another. Maybe the poetical of the pain and the melancholy can be part of your politics, but do you see any, like you can describe some of politics within any of your three works, like any of you?
So you go first.
Yeah, for me, the knowledge about myself, and when I do some kind of searching to know myself and my origin, and my spiritual journey that I'm in a process in. The religious aspect is a very it's also very political, because it comes down to having the right for my soul, in a society, like, and what I identify myself as an individual in any society. What I come from, where Islam is become also now a political weapon that made things very different now. So when I say I'm doing some Islamic art, it becomes an political issue directly, because when we feel what's going on really in the society, the structures of Islamic families and how they want to live and how they want to raise their children, and what it comes from Islamic families, it becomes a political issue, because we're living in a secular country where its democracy is what the society is built on, and we come from political Islam. We run away from political Islam. But how it's been used in Europe and in the North, what we did, like with how ISIS got created by European Muslims that didn't have like a really sort of acceptance, or they didn't feel home in Europe or in North, and this political movement tried to give them a meaning to fight and die for, to make the religion really more, put it to the radical aspects. So of course it is political. It is politically loaded. You can always talk about the condition of different religion institutions and their power in our society, and the religious, and so far maybe it's not coming in the handels ja, handelsavtal, eller det är också en handelsvara. Religion är liksom religion is also something that you can make money at, and many did, and still do, like, so I don't know, I just throw the ball on, like, let's see, like, give me an image of Islam and let's talk about it, like what is going on really, like how can a Muslim family feel home in the North? How do they get accepted, and what is the Islamic opinions, or the fundamental truth? What is Islam about? I like to create a dialogue. What is Islam? But it's already a very loaded subject, because of the Western political mission on Islamic countries, and it goes way back. It goes way back since the start of Islam, and how it established itself, and how it formed all villages and all the countries around them, like, and so it's I'm just trying to feel the pulse of what's going on in this spiritual war that it's going on, that I feel that it's going on, a spiritual war between Christianity, Judaism and Islam, that it's all the same. They all come from each other, but they all deny each other and make themselves different from the other, and trying to be a holder of the real truth, like. So it's a conflict that's been confusing me a lot, like, instead of like some religion that could give me actually spiritual feeding, like, so I can learn something, so I can know something it's meaningful and good, like, but it's not getting there for me. I don't get it that from religion. But I also decided to convert from Islam to Christianity, and I did that because it was it's like a whole family opened their arm for me. Like, finally, some Christian family wants me to be part of them and believe in what they believe in. I didn't feel that in 30 years in Sweden. Like, I always felt in the opposite to the society with my belief and what it was. It's complicated back there. Like, but what's really meaningful is how much it's what's if there is something really matter to say, like what makes sense and what makes matter, like
But is this in your art as well? Because
yeah, it's all this questioning of mine, like what I try to create images that is a window to that subject or channel, like a end of a channel. Like, I try to close down thought spirals, try to close them down with a painting, and this is how it works for me. Like, when I close down some thought line or something I've been thinking about a lot, and I just get it down and put a picture on it.
Thank you. I'd like to start a different place because let's say I was, well, in the art history of the gaze of the women, then I am one of these women hanging on the walls or being covered up by the blackness over there. And so it's like thousands of years of covering up and of having to find out how to make my voice part of the political project. And I think we have come some way, but I think there's a lot to do yet. And it's very visible in the arts in terms of, on all levels, both in terms of how many female artists are being exhibited or how many artworks are being bought by museums. And this continues, of course. And also in the outer world, between men and women, it's very, very few men who get sexually assaulted, but a lot of women. And I haven't got the numbers in my head, but it's despairingly many who gets raped every day. And since I am one of those bodies that have been transgressed in all manners possible, for me, I suppose one aspect that I haven't mentioned here is the sort of fragmentary element to my thought in motion, which has to do with trying to figure out who I am and how these experiences are not just holes in my memory and in my experience as a person, but can also be something that can help in some ways other people, but mostly just to finding a foothold for myself as an artist. And the paper, which is one of the oldest means to sketch ideas, is the most important thing for me in that regard, because it reminds me so much of the skin, which has been, transgressed, but it's also the outer layer of who I am.
Yeah, I think political-wise, I think I'm interested to see what happened when a certain topic is brought into discussion and another topic is sort of marginalized, and seeing what grows out of the marginalized community. as a result of that, because change is good, but with every change somebody's going to be shoved to the side. And I'm interested in researching that and trying to gather all the aspects of it, I guess. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you all for coming.